Okay. I'm ready whenever you are.
I was born ready to talk week 6 of the college football season. We had a lot of great games this weekend. It was a very entertaining weekend of college football games. From
Yeah,
the
that's for sure. For any of the 30 people who follow us on Twitter, you may have seen that I got a little fired up on Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, you
Uh,
were a machine.
I was a little bit fired up. I had some thoughts, and
He was not
I
afraid
don't
to
know.
share them.
Yeah, I was not. I wasn't even like I didn't
You
drink
were
at all on Saturday. Like I
you
wasn't hungover.
you were all over the place too. It wasn't just like about one topic. It was kind of you were bouncing around talking about different things, and I don't know. It was fun. I like seeing it.
Yeah. All right. You want to get into it?
Yeah, sure. So
Um,
the biggest games, we had three kind of marquee games this past weekend that involved big time teams. There was obviously the Iowa-Penn State game. Let's start there. Um, Penn State ends up blowing it kind of at the end. They had it the entire game. I think it's partially due to Sean Clifford. Sorry, Steve Clifford, NBA coach. Sean Clifford getting injured towards the start of the second half, I believe it was, and Penn State kind of had it in control. There was a lot of
I'm gonna have to interview him. I have a poop emergency.
poop emergency. It's my favorite type of emergency. All right, let's reset. This Penn State Iowa. I'm just taking it from the top. Iowa comes back and wins. First observation I want to make is Gus Johnson can make literally any game exciting. It could be the most boring Big Ten game in the history of college football. And if Gus Johnson's calling it, I'm going to find that game more entertaining. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I watched this game pretty much all. So like probably once Penn State went up 17-3, and it like hit halftime, I kind of like tuned out of the game for a little bit. I didn't like feel that the game was over by any means, but I definitely felt I felt like okay, Penn State kind of has control of this game, which is the impression that I thought would happen going into the game. I thought Penn State would win, not because I think Iowa is bad, but just because I genuinely think the talent for Penn State is just better. And I thought that Sean Clifford could take care of the ball, which actually he didn't do a very good job.
Was it
Uh,
three interceptions?
I think it was two.
I thought it was three.
Um,
Maybe the Roberson or whoever the backup came in and threw one. Maybe. I don't know.
yeah, he had like a million.
Yeah.
He was bad.
Yeah.
The thing is, the backup came in and uh, he just wasn't as good rolling the long ball.
Okay.
Like the reason
You could have
that
just left
Iowa,
it there.
I mean, you're not wrong, but the reason that Iowa was able to like catch up is because it made Penn State's uh, offense more one dimensional.
Not as
So Iowa
explosive.
couldn't
You could focus in.
on yeah. Iowa could then focus on just sacking him
Yep.
over and over and over. And that's, I think, I mean, yeah, Penn State fans are saying like, okay, yeah, Sean Clifford wouldn't have come out of the game. We would have won that game by 30. No, you wouldn't have.
No.
Sean Clifford wasn't playing that well. You probably would have won because it ended up being a close game, but you wouldn't have won by 35.
No.
You would have won by maybe
I think the
touchdown.
score probably would have just been reversed. Like,
yeah.
I
think I think it's interesting though, like how a player can make a difference. Like Sean Clifford's, he's probably not gonna. He'll probably be an NFL quarterback, like backup for 3 years, and then end up working for ESPN or something.
He'll make the rounds on a couple different practice squads. He won't ever actually make an NFL roster. I don't think he's not he's not that good at just the NFL style offense. I don't know. He fits in the Penn State system. I think it is a good a notion for like having experience within a system and showing you how much just knowing the system and having a lot of reps within the system. I think we showed how much of a benefit that is, which is like Sean Clifford's had the reps there for 2 years now.
Yeah.
Something like that.
On the flip side there, Spencer Rattler has had the reps.
I mean,
he looked very bad this.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I think in that situation, I don't know. I just think that was Roberson's first ever appearance in a game, and that wasn't just junk time. So I feel like that's a tough situation to put a younger guy in on the road at Iowa. That's just a difficult situation to be put in. And
I want to talk about the crowd at Iowa.
Oh, it's so good.
That was one of the most electric atmosphere. Like, I wish I could have been there. It was one of those times that's just like, man, I would love to be there right now.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, truthfully, definition of a 12th man. Like, Penn State had a ton of false starts. Without that crowd, Penn State wins. Like, if that game's at Penn State wins.
Well, that was kind of my point that I made going into the game. Is I thought I was gonna win because they were at home. I thought they were two evenly matched teams, and if this was at Penn State wins. But it's at Iowa, so I thought Iowa would win. Penn State had me worried there for a little bit. We keep harping on. If Sean Clifford doesn't leave that game, Penn State probably wins by a field goal instead of losing by a field goal. So.
But it didn't happen,
that's college football.
It could be crumbles.
Oklahoma, we could transition to that game. If they don't bench Spencer Rattler, I think they lose that game. There's no way that for sure. If they don't bench Spencer Rattler, they have a big fat L to Texas this past weekend. That was a crazy game. I pretty much watched the entirety of this game. But obviously, Texas jumps out early to a 28-7 first quarter lead, I think it was, at the end of the first. And Spencer Rattler doesn't look good. The Oklahoma offense doesn't look good. Texas looks like world beaters. Look like I tweeted out prematurely, Texas is back. I mean, could you blame me at the end of the first quarter? Could you blame me for tweeting that? I got a lot of hate back for that. Not a lot of hate, but a lot of people putting that back in my face. Looking at our Twitter account. Anyways, not salty at all. Not pissed off, not angry. Nope, not at all.
Buddy.
Yeah. Anyways.
I think you jinxed it for Texas.
What?
I think you jinxed it for Texas.
No, Texas, that's just Texas. They were going to do that if I tweeted that out or not.
I mean, truthfully, like I'm not the first person to have said this. That was the epitome of Texas football, like an entire season of Texas football.
Yep.
In one game.
It was. It really was.
They start out hot, and then, things get a little harder in conference. They have some close calls, and then they blow it at the end.
Yep.
Like, that's absolutely the representation of what Texas football is in a 60-minute football game.
I think the only reason I tweeted it out, looking back on it, is like right before that you had texted me and just simply asked the question, is Texas back? And I just took that and ran with it. I was just like, yes, Texas is back. I'm going to tweet it and everything. I'm going to be out on top of this. Nope, I look
really
stupid.
Trying to encourage that content creation machine.
Yeah. Yep. But nonetheless, that was a very entertaining game to watch. I mean, back and forth. Whenever there's over 100 total points scored, that's going to be an entertaining game. What was the Casey Thompson? No, that was the Texas quarterback. What's the name of the Oklahoma quarterback that came in? Caleb Williams. That's what it was. He came in and looked really good. Kind of looked like what we're all expecting Spencer Rattler to look like, and we still.
I wasn't expecting Spencer Rattler to look that good.
I mean, you weren't, but me and the national consensus was Spencer Rattler is a very good quarterback. He is the number 1 overall pick. He is the Heisman favorite, and we just haven't ever seen that. And Caleb Williams came in and looked really good and led this team back.
Yeah, I just want to point out that I was right.
Yes, you were.
And that the national media is wrong, and that is why the AP poll is stupid.
We can talk about that if you'd like, because
I harp on the AP poll. Hold on. I harp on the AP poll a lot. I like the AP poll for purposes of judging where we're at. I also take it with a grain of salt. Before we talk about the AP poll, I would like to talk about what I would consider like the most significant in terms of the playoff race game of the week, which was Alabama Texas A&M.
See, I think that's pretty. Honestly, I think it's insignificant. I think Alabama still wins out and they can get in the playoffs. I don't think this changes anything for Texas A&M.
So, but I definitely think it means that there aren't 2 SEC teams in the playoffs.
Georgia wins out, loses to Alabama in the SEC championship game. They're both in.
But what if if Alabama loses to Georgia, they're not in.
Well, yeah.
Right? How good the Big Ten is.
Yeah. I don't trust the Big Ten to have 5 teams in the top 10 in 4 weeks. Big Ten. If I had to guess right now, Big Ten is getting 1 team. I think SEC will still get 2, and then the last one's a wild card. Cincinnati's in the driver's seat for that right now. I guess there's Oklahoma, because if Oklahoma's going to keep winning, they're going to be in it. If Oklahoma's undefeated and wins the Big 12 championship, doesn't matter how bad they look, they'll be in the playoffs. So even with an Alabama loss over the weekend, and we saw the ugliest side of the Alabama team that kind of we saw in the second half against Florida, but we haven't really seen at any other point that I can think of. But they were bad. Their defense it was pretty simple by Texas A&M too. There wasn't anything complicated. They just ran the ball and then they used play action pass, and Alabama could not stop the run, and so therefore once they would sell out to stop the run, it was just play action, and then there was open Texas A&M players all over the field.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. So here's my thing in relation to Alabama. And I said it last week. I don't think that they're the invincible team that everyone was saying they were last week. Obviously Florida and Texas A&M are 2 very good football, but Texas A&M was down like 2 starting offensive linemen, their starting quarterback. Like, there's no reason Texas A&M should have won that game. And the fact that they did is impressive. And it also Nick Saban didn't coach that well. There were some mistakes, and
the kickoff return touchdown. When have you seen that from an Alabama? Like the special teams, other than they had the blocked punt for a touchdown, but it just was, there was poor execution everywhere, and you just never see that from a Nick Saban team.
Yeah, and beyond poor execution, because there's only so much as a coach you can control. I thought game management, Nick Saban didn't do a great job.
They need to be more aggressive. I don't understand why it's 4th down and goal from the 2-yard line or whatever it was, and you're down by 4. I think it was when it was 31-27, Texas A&M, and you kick a field goal. When you got Bryce Young, you got wide receivers all over the field, you got a great running back. It's 4th and goal on a 2. Go for it. Kick it or go into the end zone. Why are you kicking a field goal? It doesn't tie the game. It doesn't put you ahead.
Yeah, I think so. That's a great point. But then I go back to the before the half, Alabama had the ball and 3 timeouts and didn't use the timeouts.
Yeah.
Or no, I don't even think they had the ball.
Well, because they asked him. They asked him about it right before halftime. They went to before he went into the locker room. He got asked about it, and it was a very weird explanation. He's like, I didn't think our team was. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he justified it in a way that was very weird.
I didn't realize what she was talking about.
Yeah.
That's what it, because There was something off about this game. Like Nick Saban just looked off. I'm not saying that he's always going to be off. I mean, he's given me no reason to doubt him over the millions of games that he's won. But this game got outcoached.
You're pretty terrified if you're a Mississippi State fan this coming week, aren't you?
Oh God, I feel awful. Mississippi State. Like I'm turning in my like the cowbells. I'm just turning it in. I'm not going to that game because like I'm afraid Alabama's going to drop a nuclear bomb on that bitch.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty for me. It's not going to be pretty at practice this week for Alabama fans or Alabama players. That's going to be a shit show. You're going to be running a lot. It's just not going to be fun. And then they're just going to take out all the pent up anger and aggression that they've built up at Nick Saban for being so angry at them at practice all week, and they're just going to take it all out on Mississippi State.
Yeah, they are going to do.
I do want to give Texas A&M a little bit of credit here. Alabama was bad. Their offensive line in the first half couldn't block anybody. It seemed like Bryce Young was under pressure all the time. But I do want to give Texas A&M. They played really well. They played their perfect game. They played a game that's the Texas A&M that we all thought we were going to get at the start of the season, where I had them in the playoff, and they were in that playoff discussion, but then they just shit the bed to start the season, and their offense was terrible. Offense was absolutely terrible, but the quarterback Calzada, hadn't heard of him, not going to be honest, going into this game, but he played really well, led a great drive to end the game, or the final drive to go down there and get the field goal on one leg.
There's a reason he hadn't been very good. He's the backup quarterback for Texas A&M because whatever his name is got hurt in Haynes King got hurt against Colorado, I think.
Yeah.
And so against Colorado, he couldn't do anything because obviously they didn't think he'd be playing. And then I don't know who they played next. Maybe it was Arkansas.
They played Mississippi State.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like he didn't look great because honestly, he was a freshman.
Yeah.
You know?
He looked really good on Saturday, and that was against Alabama's defense, which granted wasn't playing well, and it was pretty simple, run the ball, play action, but he still played really well. What? I couldn't hear you.
A win against Alabama is a win against Alabama. It's the reason that Johnny Manziel got drafted at all. So,
and that Heisman Trophy that he got.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that beating Alabama gets people to know your name.
Yeah. It was definitely an entertaining, weird, surprising weekend of college football. I don't really have anything else on the Alabama Texas A&M game. We already talked about Penn State, Iowa, Oklahoma, Texas.
The Arkansas game, just not on a less relevant note, was so much fun. That was a fun game to watch.
Oh yeah. There's absolutely no defense.
On a shelf. No defense. They put him on a shelf and said, "You just rest. It's okay."
Yeah.
Did you see Lane Kiffin's quote after the game?
I did not.
It was hysterical. It was like, well, our quarterback's doing super well. He's making up for the fact that our defense decided to go home in the second quarter. Because, we just decided to not play that defense thing, I guess.
Yeah.
And Arkansas decided also not to play that defense thing, and decided to let our very weird. I think it makes me kind of question my confidence in Arkansas, because I think Arkansas is. I did say they were the second best team in the West, but now I don't know because of Texas A&M. But I mean, Arkansas's.
Texas A&M technically isn't out of the conversation to make the SEC championship game now.
Technically, you're correct.
Texas A&M might win. I mean, and they got the tiebreaker now over Alabama.
If Arkansas beats Alabama, then Texas A&M is in the driver's seat, I think.
Well, then I think Arkansas would be in the driver's seat because Arkansas
Now
beat
they have 2 losses.
Texas A&M lost to Mississippi State, and then who was the other loss? Arkansas, didn't they? They lost to Arkansas, and then so I want chaos. So I want the 3-way tie. So I want Alabama to beat Arkansas. So there's that 3-way transitive property of we don't know who the best team of these 3 is.
I'm down for that. Yeah, actually, I think if Arkansas beats Bama, they are in the SEC championship.
I don't know. It's too.
They need. If Arkansas wins, they're in the SEC championship game.
They need to. Yeah. I mean, obviously, if they went out, because they would have 2 losses, Alabama would have 2 losses, Texas A&M would have 2 losses, and there's no.
But the 2 losses that Alabama would have is Alabama, and they're in the. So the 2 losses that Alabama would have would be to Arkansas and Texas A&M. So it's 2 West teams.
Yeah.
Texas A&M 2 losses would be to 2 West teams, but Arkansas's 2 losses would be to Georgia, an East team.
Yeah.
And Ole Miss, a West team.
Yeah.
So Arkansas should win that tiebreaker. If Arkansas beats Alabama, they're in the fucking drivers to be in the SEC.
Yes, they are. Game. Wild. Who would have thought that?
Happens, Sam Pittman. Like I later on, I was gonna be like, who's coach of the year? Because I have a couple people that I want to bring up. But if Arkansas makes the SEC championship game, Sam Pittman's the coach of the year by far.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's not even a discussion at that point.
Okay, I'm glad you agree.
It's not because I think coach of the year is not how good your team is, but I think how based on preseason expectations how you performed, and based on preseason expectations, Arkansas was picked to be last in the SEC West or second to last maybe.
Yeah, last and
Mississippi
last.
State would probably be, I don't know, it was one of the, doesn't matter. Either way, if they go on and win the SEC West even, they don't even have to win the SEC championship game. I think that's easy coach of the year.
What if Arkansas goes on to play Georgia in the SEC championship?
Redemption.
And then beats Georgia.
You can concede, or I can concede that you said that Alabama wasn't invincible, but I think Georgia might seriously be invincible.
I don't.
Okay. You had the weakness to point out for Alabama. The second half against Florida, you had that to point to. What are you pointing to?
My weakness to point out for Georgia is not so much a weakness as I have a lack of confidence in Georgia.
Fair.
It's not that they've shown me weakness. It's that based off of who Georgia is.
It's just the logo. It's just the logo.
Yeah, it's just based off who Georgia is. Like, let me see here. I'm trying to pull up.
Because I flipped.
I
was in that same boat to start the season. I was like, I don't trust Georgia. Their offense is terrible. Don't believe it. But I flipped, and I think Georgia, I've seen enough from their offense. I've seen enough from even JT Daniels is hurt, so they're playing Stetson Bennett right now, and even he's playing really well. They went at Auburn in what could have been a game that they could have lost, and they just completely ran them out of the building.
Okay. So here's my thing. I got my notes here. So Georgia, their schedule, they played Clemson, and they won 10-3.
Mm-hmm.
So offense, not great. Also, Clemson's defense is pretty good. Actually, no.
Clemson?
They're not. They're good, but listen to this.
Clemson's defense is legitimately the only reason they've won a game this year.
Yes, it is. But also, that's the only reason that Rutgers has won a game. So telling me that doesn't mean anything. They do have a top 20 defense, but it's ranked 19th right now, based off statistics. Okay, so Clemson's defense is a top 20 defense. Outside of that, and by the way, they scored 10 points. They didn't run up the score on a good defense. They scored 10 points.
First game
and
of the
they didn't
season,
score.
too.
They didn't score an offensive touchdown in that game. By the way,
first game of the season.
Huh?
First game of the season.
Okay, so then they played UAB. Is their defense in the top 20? No.
UAB's got a pretty sneaky good defense.
Who did they play next, Dan?
Georgia?
They played South Carolina, who has a really good defense, right? Yeah, no. No, they don't have a good defense. But wait, their next opponent really has to have a great defense, right? No, it's fucking Vanderbilt. It's Vanderbilt. Okay, all right, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Arkansas, they did beat Arkansas by 37. And guess what? Arkansas is known to have a good defense, right?
They're known Arkansas to have one of the best defenses and possibly the toughest defense in the country. But
Arkansas just allowed 51 points to Ole Miss.
Well, Ole Miss is a top 5 offense.
How good Arkansas's defense is. I'm sorry.
I didn't catch what you just said.
I'm not saying Georgia is not the best team. I think Georgia is the best team. I'm just saying I can make a case to bet against them.
You can make a case to bet against anybody, but I will not accept any feasible argument that Georgia is not clearly an invincible team right now.
They're not invincible. Nobody's invincible. Absolutely not.
Okay.
I reject the entire premise that there is an invincible in college football this year. In college football any year. Even last year, Bama theoretically could have lost.
I mean, theoretically, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Because if you tell me that Georgia playing that team that played Clemson, based off what Clemson is now, is not invincible. If you give me that team versus Alabama, I'm taking Alabama.
The team that played Clemson?
Yeah.
But it's not, you can't do that. That was week 1. Teams grow and they get better as the season goes on. That's what the best teams do.
I don't think so.
You don't think that the best teams get better as the season goes on? I have seen Georgia get better as the season goes on. I think it's a ridiculous argument to say Clemson or the Georgia team from week 1 beats out or loses to Alabama. I think that's just ridiculous to say. Because that's not the team it is right now. A team gets better as the season goes on. A great team gets better as the season goes on, and that's what Georgia's done. They've improved. Their offense has gotten better each and every week, and they keep showing you signs. They keep getting questioned. It's like, oh, it's Stetson Bennett. He's a walk-on. They're definitely going to lose this week to Arkansas. Why is Arkansas 16.5-point favorites? I was the one doing that. I bet against Georgia. I had Arkansas plus 16.5. Lost that. I was against Georgia this entire time, but I have seen enough, and I think this Georgia team is legitimate, and I think they have fixed their offensive problems. I don't give a shit if it's against South Carolina or Vanderbilt. They still put up more than 30 points. The Georgia team of the past 10 years doesn't put up 30 points, even if they're winning that game. It's just, I think it's ridiculous.
All right. We'll see when they play somebody.
They played Arkansas in a top 10 matchup last week and ran them out of the building. They allowed 0 points to Arkansas. You know what? I don't even care how good the offense is. You know what?
I'm not saying that their defense is bad.
I don't even care about how good their offense is. That defense is good enough that I don't even care how good the offense is. The offense is really good, but I don't care because it doesn't matter. That defense is legendary. That defense will go down in history as one of the greatest college defenses we've ever seen.
I will yield to you on the fact that their defense is amazing.
Best defense I've ever seen.
As I have said, I'm not saying that Georgia isn't the best team. Okay? I'm saying that they could be beat.
Okay, if that's what we're arguing about, I can't argue against that because literally anybody can get beat.
I'm making the argument that on any given week, someone could beat Georgia. If Georgia walks in and underestimates Kentucky, Kentucky could win that game.
They're not losing to
Do I
Kentucky.
think it's going to happen? No. I don't think it's going to happen. But could it happen? Yes.
Okay.
Because I think that Georgia is a good team that has flaws.
And the Jets could win the Super Bowl this year.
Not happening.
But they could. Theoretically, they could. They're not eliminated from contention.
I think mathematically that's not going to happen.
I mean, technically, they're not out of the playoffs yet. Mathematically, they are not eliminated from contention. So they could theoretically make the Super Bowl.
No, I'm saying the likelihood that Georgia loses a game is a lot higher than the likelihood that the Jets make the playoff.
Okay.
A lot higher.
I can agree with you on that because the Jets are fucking terrible, and that was just an extreme example I used. But this is
it was a bad example, Dan. Get better.
It was hyperbolic to make my point known that if we're just gonna play in hypotheticals, yeah, anything's possible. But if you had to ask me straight face right now, is Georgia losing a game before the SEC championship game because that's a neutral site game and that's weird. That's I don't know. That I won't. They could see them losing to Alabama there, just because I think Alabama's also a really, really good.
I could see Florida.
Nope, I don't trust Florida.
I don't either, but I could see them losing to Florida. I could see Florida being like, "Oh, we just don't care about the season, but we're gonna ruin her for Georgia."
I mean,
we're gonna fuck Georgia.
That's their goal every year. Is to
exactly,
but
it's a neutral site game.
It is
by your own logic. I know, but I'm just saying, man. Like by your logic, it's a neutral site game.
Georgia's winning the national championship. I said it there.
You said it here. Okay, that's probably right, but you know,
that's all I needed.
They've tried to do that since the 80s and haven't been able to do it, so I'm not going to put my money on it yet. Okay. So I feel like we've talked.
I think that's good for our week 6 review. We've gone so long.
We've argued it out.
Yeah.